Hey, this is Gene. I had started another video to talk about this subject today. I was outside, and apparently it's like 80 degrees here, and my iPad couldn't deal with it. Normally, I do my videos in the morning because my brain works better at that time. As you know, some of you know that I had a stroke. Actually, I've had three of them over the years, and the first one really messed with me, and it took me a while to get my speech back and all that. So I'm going to start over again because I don't really edit anything. I don't know how to do that on here. It's like 6 or 7 minutes of a video. I wouldn't know how to actually start over again or start from one to start over again. But uh, I was not going to talk about the presidential election. I did in 2016, 2020. I correctly, I had one state wrong. In 2016, I had Trump winning. I think I was only one vote or one electrical vote off. Um, 2020 or 2020, I had a bad feeling going into the end. And even though he was winning pretty much until the end, I thought something was going on. And I knew something was going to happen with the ballots. And it did. And clearly, there were probably a million votes that were probably not correctly cast. Um, couldn't really find out if these people actually were real. And there were only in certain areas that we had issues, like in Pennsylvania and Georgia and Arizona and Nevada, swing states, that Trump was winning until he wasn't. Now it was a different type of thing, right? A lot of people had mail-in ballots, but you could not verify who they were. And as we've known for the last 20 years, that you can't really do that. It's wrought with fraud. So whatever. 2024, because Trump has kind of like almost become a normal Republican right now. I have issues with him because I'm America first, and his full-throated defense of Israel has been pissing me off. The fact that he is all about legal immigration, like he thinks that that's going to be better than just having illegals uh, when we're still have American citizens who can't get jobs. All it's going to do is continually make the wages to be stagnant. It's a bad thought lot. We should seriously just put an emporium, uh, and I can't say the word, more moratorium on anything that's deal with legal or illegal immigrants. We need to train our own people here. A lot of them are young men. You give them a goal and know they're going to be paid well, they will come up and they will do what they have to do. But before I talk about this, because now shit's come out, right? Clearly, it's October surprise that just came out for the Democrats. But before I get to that, I want to talk about Charlie Kirk, who is one of his biggest surrogates right now, even though he's has issues with Trump. And Charlie has had to change his tune on a lot of things because Nick Fuentes and America First politics has changed a lot of people on the right. They've had to because a lot of white young people are saying there's shit wrong and we're getting blamed for shit and we have no future. So they're talking about that now. They're talking about basically what's going on with the white man. So what was crazy is it was an Asian student in North Carolina that had a great question. He framed everything, said what he was going to say, and he was talking about Trump's continually saying that he's going to put green cards behind those who graduate from any type of university, whether it's 2 years or 4 years, and that would be give them a pathway to citizenship, and they'll be taking away jobs from American citizens. So this guy just framed it all out, and then Charlie Cook just sit there and said, "Well, thank you for that soliloquy, or this big story, or this speech." The guy gave a great question, and that's how he treated him. And Carly couldn't do nothing about it. He was stumped the entire time, and he kept trying to do other things to get him to do something else, to ask other questions. And then eventually, at the end, about 5 minutes of this stuff going back and forth, both respectful, especially on the Asian uh, North Carolina student, he basically said, "We have to decide which one's the better of two evils." And as part of the electorate, we should never have to do that. We should hold our nominees responsible for what they say. Trump should have to know that this is the wrong thing to do. Uh, you're you're alienating a lot of people that look like me, sons that I have, um, and they're giving it to people that they're not supposed to be here. It's great they want to come here, maybe go to university and all that shit, and go back to their country and do something there. That's great, but don't come here and take away jobs from Americans. And both sides should be against this, but they're not, because now we have to cater to minorities or illegal minorities or even legal people that come here instead of the actual natives of this country. And what I mean by natives is those who actually built the country, actually made it a country. You just can't look at Native Americans or the Indians tribes as something that built the United States, all the different states together and became a union. That's where white people from European that came out here. And people don't want to talk about that because it makes you like, oh, you're a white supremacist. No, that's just the fucking truth about it. Um, this is not stolen land. This is conquered land. Sorry, it happens in every fucking part of this world that when a visiting force comes across, either wins or not, they take over the land and they've conquered it. Anyway, so at the end of the end of that, all of a sudden now he had one more question, and he said about censorships. And that's when Vivek stepped in and he said, well, clearly you have to be on with Trump here because the left is censoring everybody. And the guy's like, yeah, you're probably right there, but I don't believe that as well. Right now, the left is, but doesn't mean that the right won't. They've done it before. They have went against guys that are part of they call this guy a dissident, and he called himself a dissident too. And that's something that you get from Nick Fuentes' side of the right. I'm not even sure that this guy actually watches Nick. It's possible he does, but I think this guy's smart enough that he can come up with his own ideas and can present it to people like Charlie Kirk or Vivek. But he's like, you have, at the end of the day, you have to go for the guy that's not going to do that. Okay, that's great. Okay, that one little area you might be right. But hey, I'm sorry, I have a lot of problems with Trump in this go around. His full-throated defense of Israel is one of the reasons why I was not going to vote for him. I don't like, first of all, I don't like the fact they have too much influence in this country. And if you say that, it's anti-Semitic. And Trump agrees with that statement. He's like, I'm going to be the best thing ever for Israel. I'm going to actually call out people that talk like this. So when you talk about censorship, if I say I think that Jews have too much influence in this country, Trump will definitely sign a bill that would do something to me. It's already like now that anyway. In Florida right now, if you say something like this, you can get booted out of school. They have way too much influence for the amount of people who have in this country. And if you look who's actually financing Trump right now, most of them are Jewish businessmen. And he didn't have that in 2016. Had a lot of guys that were paying him $10, $20, a lot of small donations. He still had some people at the end when he realized he might actually win, although he was never thought he would win, even though I said he was going to win, because the country was at that position at that time right now. People were waking up to the fact of what's happening, that as a Democrat, like I was back then, we realized that this party has basically decided, no, we're going to be Marxists. And that leads basically where we are today, because now, apparently, Hitler has said things about Hitler, or Trump has said things about Hitler. And I'm thinking to myself, I talk about Hitler all the time. You're not allowed to say that, yeah, there was something that Hitler did was good. You can't say that. If you say that now, that's going to ruse your campaign. And just recently, apparently, Kamala came out and said that basically he wants to be like Hitler. And the last time that happened, 6 million Jews died. Now, people that watch my channel knows that I have some contention with that number. I don't think they should have been in-housed or whatever the word is. I don't call them death camps. These were work camps. And probably maybe 100,000 people died from that. I have a real problem with the actual story of that. It doesn't really make any sense to me. But that's not really what this thing is. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, do I think that Trump might have said something like, yeah, something Hitler did was good? Did he say, and this another thing he said, that I wish we had more generals that Hitler had? And I'm like, well, seriously, think about this for a second. If you're Trump, you have one of your generals, Miley or whatever his name is, going on in Congress and talking about white privilege and the fact that we have to change everything because these other races can't deal with any type of responsibilities, and that we as white people have this unique privilege in this country. And I can think if he was watching that saying, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Yeah, I'd like to have people that are a bit more real people running my military, like maybe some of Hitler's generals. And then when you actually look at historical records, we realize that if you look at the top 10 generals of all time, there would be some of those Nazi generals there. They were great in the battlefield. Um, you realize it was one country against the fucking world in Europe. You didn't have Japan come over there and do anything. You had some of the Italy helped, but it was Germany against everybody, including us, at the end of that war. And they held out, and they could have fucking won it. If they would have stopped, if they would have bombed during Dunkirk and killed all those people, they'd have won. But regardless, I don't want to go. I don't want to rewrite history. People do that all the fucking time. I look at what I look at, and I make my own decisions based on that. But here I am. I'm hearing this, and they're calling him a fascist and all this stuff, and I'm like, it's strange to me that we all pretty much know that fascism is state-run type of shit. They went in and said, we're going to build the roads. We're going to give you 0% interest on any loans so you can build stuff. There'll be state Medicare. Everything's going to be done by the state, which is a leftist idea. And they're going to call Trump a fascist when they want Venezuela here. They want the way they can control us based on that. The left has become the authoritarian left right now. That if you don't believe what they believe, they're gonna censor you. Now again, I think that Trump would do the same thing if I had a problem with Israel. That they would say you can't talk about that, or I would be pushed out of any type of. If I had a huge YouTube channel and they would take away my money to be able to do this. They do this to Nick all the time because of what he says. And Nick is obviously a bit further to, well, I don't know, he's not right or left either. I think he believes that if you're going to talk about identity politics, then I should have a place at that table as a person that looks like me, who's a European by heritage, that I should have something to say at that thing. So I'm seeing all these people on Twitter talking about it. Yeah, Trump is like Hitler. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about what Hitler did. The whole thing about the book burning. They burned books. They burned the trans stuff in Berlin. And if you actually look at your history, you see that Berlin was the most degenerate city on the earth at that time. It was basically Babylon part 2.0. And now it's 1,000 times worse in the West. But back then, there's a big scourge of communism that was going across Europe at that time, and even the United States. So this idea that Hitler was this bad person, he was Time Man of the Year, of course, in 39 or 38. He had done unbelievable things to a country that was dead. It became one of the most powerful teams or countries in Europe. So he did good things. The fact that you can't say, yeah, he did good things because, later he did other things. But meanwhile, all the world leaders had a problem with with Jewish usury and all that stuff, because they would go into these countries and they would just tax all the they would, if you took loans from them because they ran all the banks, that they would just 10%, 20%, and they would continually kill the native born. Meanwhile, their own people would pay with 0%. So all Hitler did is say, what we're going to do? The state's going to finance you at 0%. You just pay us back. And at that time, they built everything, the roads, everything. And it was great. It showed you could do it. If you want to do something that's similar to socialism, you could fucking do it, right? If everybody was to get you, 95% of the country was like, yeah, we're going to do this. And you have to understand why because he did say stupid stuff in Mein Kampf. He had things that he had to say about the Jews, but when he wasn't talking about the normal day-to-day Jewish persons, because he had 100,000 of them in his own fucking army. He had people on his staff that were Jewish, and he knew this, okay? But the elites that ran the academics, the judges, the financiers, all that, the financiers, he had issues with because he saw what he did in World War One. He believed, and I think most historians will at least put it was part of it. The First World War was probably started by them as well, and of course the second one as well, because before the war even started, all worldwide Jewry had a war against Germany because Germany wanted to do this stuff. They wanted to take away the banks that were run by these people because they were killing the native people there with interest. And Hitler came in and said, we're going to do this. And all of a sudden, the whole country blew up. It became the greatest thing ever in Europe. Now, what is the shit after that? You can have issues with. I think a lot of it's just revenge, what happened for World War One. This dude saw all his friends getting killed. He wanted to get back the German native lands. And he was going to do that. Now, I don't know what happened after that. He was taking a lot of shit, drugs and shit. And maybe he wanted to take over the entire world, okay? And he should not have interned millions of people in camps, okay? He shouldn't do it, even though we did it. It took away their land and everything as well. This idea that it's just him, right? I get take away the Holocaust and all that shit because I have a different opinion than the mainstream, okay? I take it the first reports from an agency that wasn't biased as more gospel than the communists that came across and looked at the camps, and then British and United States saying this is what we got to do, and it is Jewish people saying this is what it really was. So anyway, so we get back to all this. So this is, I guess, this is their October surprise. They want to say that Hitler is or Trump is Hitler, that he wants to be a fascist, that he's a big good dictator, that if he gets in, he's never going to leave. And they said this in 2016 as well. But the thing is, he's at this point he is every other milquetoast Republican, and this is why I didn't want to vote for him. And I think that at this point, I don't think it would be any different when it comes to Kamala and him. I don't think that the border is going to be shut down. Maybe you could say, yeah, we're going to stop the southern border being people have. And what this guy, oh yeah, the student actually brought up before, he said that under Trump that the highest ever going across the border was under him, and then at the end he stopped it a little bit, but at that point it was still the most in history. Now, obviously, when Biden came in, he changed all the other stuff, and it made it 10 times worse than what Trump had. But there were still over 500,000 people come across the border every year, and we can't, even though we have a big country, we can't disdain that. And now we know it's at least around 10 million under Biden and Harris, and then they're being paid, and this is just not sustainable. And then we also should look at what's happened in Europe and England. And their cities there are not, they're basically taken over, and there are no longer native country or cities anymore. But you can't talk about that. You will go to jail in England if you say shit about that. And it's coming here, and it wouldn't really matter if it's going to be. You can't talk about the Muslims and the Mexicans and people from Central America. If you're on the left, you can't talk about them. Now, both parties will say, don't talk about the Holocaust. Don't talk about the Jews have too much influence. Don't talk about they have too much influence in Congress and everything else like that, when they clearly do. Don't talk about the fact that a lot of congressmen and senators have dual citizenships. Why is it allowed? Seriously, why do we allow somebody that's actually been in the IDF in our Congress from a foreign country that fought with their army? Why are they in our Congress? This is the United States of America, not Israel. And people starts waking up about this. Look up USS Liberty. Look, all the shit that's actually happened. There is so much there. And it's not really deep diving type of shit. You just can't go on Google all the time and look at that. You have to look at people that have alternate type of um, on Rumble and shit. And you have to parse it, right? You can't say Jews are responsible for everything, all right? But you can definitely look at where they do have influence in this country. That's way more than the amount of people they have in this country, okay? And then you have people like um, Peterson saying, well, it's just because they're so much smarter than us. Their IQ is higher than the Europeans, and that's why they're just so successful. But people talk about white privilege and all that shit. I'm like, and generational wealth. Well, let's talk about how much they had with the money, and they go to all the highest Ivy League colleges, and they dominate there based on percentages as well. And then we saw the power that they had during just the regular protest against the war in Gaza, and that they got rid of a couple uh, presidents at Ivy League schools. This African, Bob Ackerman, is a Jew, and he was going to take all this money from Harvard. He was telling his other Jewish people not to do this shit like that. And I mean, you talk about who's got the power. I always thought that really, when you look at the victim hierarchy, this is before trans and all that shit came out, what would have been the educated black female, right? That would be the top, right? You can't do anything of that. But we found out that that's not really how it works because they got rid of one. She was the president of Harvard. Yeah, later on they said she had plagiarizing type of shit. But she's like, she couldn't answer the question. She's like, well, is it all right for them to protest on your... Yeah, it is. It's like this country forgot who they are. Whether you agree with their protest or not, they should be allowed to fucking do it. Um, it's like, it's weird. On both sides, there are people that just don't like Israel, but it's not anti-Semitic to say you don't like the government of Israel because of what they fucking do. That's not anti-Semitic. Again, how many times that we have to continually say this? The people that are in Gaza, the people that are north of him in Lebanon, the people that are up in Syria and stuff like that, they're all fucking Semites. They're all from the same, it's like a German versus a France person. Pretty much when you go back in time, we're basically brothers. So, well, you can't, well, so it means I can't say anything about this person over here because he's also a Semite. I mean, it's just stupid. But I just, how can, when this guy comes out in the Congress with his IDF uniform on, like he's going to fucking war. Why are you wearing that in my fucking Congress? Why should I deal with that? Oh my, it's like, and the fact that Trump would not say anything about that, it's what the problem with Trump, the promise that he had is that we were going to give our mojo back, right? And we're never going to be the same 95% being white in this country, right? And when I was born, it was 89% white. We were never going to get back to that, but right now it's under 60, all right? And it's a fundamental change to what it means to be American. Now, if everybody that came here assimilated and believed the idea of a constitution and all that stuff, then that would be great. But that's not what they do. A lot of them come here and they look for handouts. Oh, Gene, you're just being mean because they came from nothing and we have to help everybody. We already do this, so it will fundamentally change what it means to be American. And a lot of people that's okay with that. I'm not. I'm America first, and I don't like it when a country 5,000 miles away from us that has way too much control of this country changes it because a lot of people there, the academics and stuff, have ties to Israel. They've been trying to do this in our country, and they're doing it in Europe right now. They want to sit back and everybody fucks each other and have babies and are all mixed and all that shit. And then later on they'll come along and say, we're just smarter than everybody else, and at this time we'll just use you as pawns and we'll just do what we have to do. And the idea that this is not happening, it is. They've talked about this in their plans. It's everywhere. It's all out there right now because they think they could just basically say it because they know nobody's going to say anything about it because you can't say anything about it. It's disgusting. So, as this is now going a little bit over 25 minutes, what do you do now? I was not going to vote, but my son wants to vote. He wants to vote for Trump. So if I have to drive him down there, I'm going to vote for Trump. All right. I'm not. I'm not going to go and say, yeah, the best of two evils. Trump. Trump could be a transformative president. He could be one of the greatest of all time if he goes back and gets his mantra back from 2016. I don't think that's going to happen because now I think he's been bought. There's way too many people that have way too much money behind him, way too many Jewish people, two people that have ties to Israel. This is basically the side that's the Ben Shapiro side of conservatism, which I don't want. I want them out because they're the guys that don't give a shit about this country. They don't care if it's all black, right. They don't give a shit. As long as they all want to be American. Okay. Look, sorry, you're going to take away our history. And there, it's when you look at the left and who runs the left, when they continually talk and say phrases that are Marxist in nature. And then you look at Hollywood and what they say in their films. You look at the Star Wars and it says we have to kill the past. Okay. What does that actually mean if you're talking about the United States? You want to kill the people that founded it? Because right now there are people on the left that just say white people should be killed, especially white men should be killed. That we are the most dangerous people basically on earth because we have fair skin. So, and you continually hear this as a young man. I mean, older now. I'm going to be 60 in a couple months. But young men hear that and they're like, what do I have to do then? And a lot of them become like male feminists, and they act like betas, and they're not men really. And the fact is, they've been eating the soy and all that shit, and they look like women. It's just like I said many times on this video or on this channel. When I was growing up, I wouldn't look at myself as an alpha, but I clearly am now. When I look at guys that are my son's age, good Lord, I kick the shit out of them. And I'm not, I'm not that strong, but I've seen them. They're all skinny fat, or they're just obese. They have no athletic potential, and they are, and this is the future, and they're going to produce women or kids. I mean, it's just no. And there's a whole other thing too, is that we're not actually reproducing. So I'm out walking with my wife, and my wife said to me, well, when you had that stroke, you changed everything. You were a Democrat before, and you're all this. And I'm like, no. As I said back then, I know I shocked everybody, is that that the party had left me. That this idea that I couldn't talk about American values and not being just yelled at because of that, or if I actually had an opinion and they looked at me and they said, you can't because you're a white dude. You don't understand what it means to be a woman or a black person or anything. You just don't understand. And I said, it just kept going on and on and on and on and on like this. And then the president that I voted for, that I thought would unify the country, changed it. And he went to identity politics and just put it on steroids. It just got worse and worse and worse. So over here, when he first came in, we were a little center left in this country, maybe. A little moderate when it comes to identity politics. I think we had almost solved the racism thing. We knew that they're still around, right? But we kind of started, and then he came in and kind of like changed it back, and it just got on steroids, and like, we got to go, and it just didn't stop there. It never does when it comes to the left. And then now it moved over to gay rights, and then it got into trans rights, and now we're at this area that it's just so, the common sense is just fucking lost. We have boys playing in girls' sports, and it's just, and we got people in the staff that are trans. We have a doctor that's like a surgeon general who's a fucking man thinking is cosplaying as a woman. I mean, it's just, we just lost everything in this country. And I think it's part of that's religion, and we've lost our soul and all that shit. And when you take fathers out of the house, and the white man does not, have an actual goal to have families or defend the country, this is what fucking happens. And the people that want this to happen are the ones that have money, and they can just look at us and say, you're going to go out and do this, and we're going to say this, and then you're going to be upset about this, and you're going to go against this team because of that, and because they're black or they're orange, or we're going to go with them. And they continually put this in us on the movies. I'm a huge movie fan, but you see it now. When I go back and look at it, you see what they've just trying to program us to hate each other based on the color of our skin. And you sit there, well, remember what Martin Luther King said? He was right, right? That's where we were. And now we have segregated graduations now in college campuses. We have segregated dorms now. I mean, we've when when the Democrats said we don't want to go back. What are you talking about? You've already pushed us back. You're back before segregation now. Are you gonna lynch me because I'm a white dude? I mean, it's so stupid, and I know that most people in this country don't think that way. So I think that Trump might win, but I don't know. When I just heard the other day that the number one thing to talk about now in this whole election is the fucking abortion. How is that fucking possible? Because now it's at the state level. Why do we even care? If you live in a state that wants to do it up till birth, then fucking do it. Vote for that shit. That Luciferian satanic bullshit. Vote for it. All the single women out there, most of them white. And let's look at Europe when they allowed all these fucking people from other worlds, from the third world in their country, and all these women are like, let me hug you, and then they all got raped and shit. And then we're like, we don't understand that's what's going to happen fucking here? I'm like, it will never happen. I said to myself, well, they're so stupid what they're doing in Europe, but we won't let it happen to them because we have guns and shit, and we're going to do something about it. Fuck no, you got the judges, crazy-ass leftist judges that say, no, let them in, and we'll just pay for everything. We'll give them a phone. We'll sign up and say, show up when you want to show up. And then, of course, we're going to allow you to stay regardless. And then you're sitting that's part of the whole plan is to be so upset that you're going to do something about it, right? And some of those people in January 6th probably felt that way, but it was one of the most, I don't even know what to call it. It wasn't really it was a riot for a minute and a half, but after that, it's kind of like it petered out. But it's been line eyes at like basically 9/11 50,000, right? And there are too many people to actually be this shit. You go on Twitter or something, they say the same shit. So anyway, so you get back all this shit, and they're trying to use this to say that Trump is Hitler. And I'm like, at this point, there are a lot of young men that have been actually listening to Hitler's speeches and realize that, what he was talking about, they understand. He came into a country that was dead, that the left or the West had actually tried to crush Germany. You can understand why they might clean on to something like that, and why people like Nick Fuentes is getting some sort of following because he believes certain things. He's more radical when it comes to. He wants almost like a dictatorship himself, but almost like a king, with power, right? Like, and that's everything we looked at Trump. The people were like, he would be the king of America. But he's been bought, in my mind. I think he's been bought. But at the same time, I probably will vote for him. But before I leave, I just want to say this: we should expect more, because what the potential of under Donald Trump would make this country so much better for everybody involved, regardless of what skin color you have. I've said it many times on this show. I live in a diverse neighborhood with about 110 houses. I think the last time I talked about it, I said it was about 60% white and 40 non-white. I think it's like 50-50 now, because a couple of people have left out of here and people bought their houses and they were black people. But we have more than just black people. We have people from Asia area, Korea, Japan, India. It's just very diverse. And we have no issue. And what the great thing about this country is you can do that if you're willing to assimilate, have a real job, not have crime, and you can still have the American experience and still also celebrate your own heritage. And that's what we're all about. There are way too many times now people just say, you know what, and we did this as well. The white people that came across the country, a lot of times they didn't look at Italians as white, right? And even some people would say Irish as well. But they would be their own little ghettos, right? And this is forever, right? And it's still kind of like that to now. But at some point, we became Americans. We hope that people are here will do that. But we'll see. I do not believe that Trump, or if he wins, that he's going to deport 12 million people. I don't believe it. I think he might put things in play that if you do something wrong, you'll get deported. But he's not going to be able to do anything to people in California that's run by liberals to get rid of people there. It's just not going to fucking happen. It might happen in Texas. It might happen in Florida. It might happen in Ohio or something like that. But it's not going to happen in liberal bastion states. It's just not going to happen. But it's just, like I said, I wasn't going to do anything about this. I was just going to go along. I mean, at the end of the day, I'd rather Trump win. But at the same time, the fact that he will not do anything about the real threat that we have, which is the influence of Israel and their PACs and their lobbyists in this country and what they actually do in this country, is very distressing to me. I hate the fact that they claim to be white until they're not. Obviously nobody's probably going to watch this now, but just there's a whole video. Just watch Morgan Freeman talking to Mike Wallace, and when he talks about race and the Black History Month, and he says, "I don't believe in Black History Month." It's like, you're gonna define my race into 1 month, and he says, "Do you want a White History Month?" And he's looking at Mike Wallace, and Mike says, "I'm a Jew." And then it's like you got this whole thing now where they will cosplay being white until they're called out about something, and then they're a Jew, and then they can use that victim hierarchy. Oh, you remember the Holocaust? Oh, do you remember that we've been slaves forever? Do you know that we've been knocked out of 109 countries? Not because they did anything wrong. No, not that they just go in there and just tax the native people there and get too much influence in the judges and all that shit. No, they never did anything. Like I said, I could talk about this for a billion years, but I will ask you to go vote. Vote your conscience. I wouldn't give a shit if Tulsi Gabbard was the Democratic nominee. I might vote for her, but apparently now she's going to be a Republican. This is not a sexual thing, a sexist thing. I don't give a shit who would have ran. It's unfortunately in my mind the last two times that a woman was actually running for office in the United States that was a Democrat, they were both very bad candidates, Hillary and Kamala. And we can also just look at history and say women that actually run European nations, you can see that it's the worst things they've ever had because they allowed all these foreigners come in there and basically rape their own fucking people. But anyway, I'll let it go. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please share and like this if you actually stayed this long. I know it's a long fucking time. And you guys have a good day, and we'll talk to you probably after the election in a couple of weeks. Maybe I'll come on here and say other things about Manchester United or something, but I think this is probably all I'm going to say about it. Shout out to that Asian dude that was stumped Charlie Kirk, and Vivek. You got to be better, man. You just got to show the entire exchange. You just don't show the end of it. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.